It's so easy to get completely lost in the day-to-day of running a business, right? You're focused on your team, your products, your customers. But have you ever stopped to think about how much the world outside your doors is shaping your success? Today, we're zooming out. We're going to look at those powerful external forces that can either push you forward or stop you in your tracks.
So let's start with this big question. Is your business an island? Can you just, exist all on your own, completely separate from everything else? The answer is a huge, resounding no. Every single company, whether it's the tiny cafe on the corner or some massive global corporation, is totally interconnected with the world around it.
And that whole interconnected web, that's what we call the business environment. It's basically everything that's outside of your direct control. You can almost think of it like breathing. Your business breathes in inputs, things like money, raw materials, talented people, and it breathes out outputs, like your products and services. It's this constant back and forth.
And here's why this is so critical. A company's success, or frankly its failure, really boils down to how well it can adapt to this environment. Ignoring these outside forces? That's like being the captain of a ship and deciding not to check the weather forecast. You might get lucky for a little while, but sooner or later, you are going to sail straight into a storm you never even saw coming. So how do you check that business weather forecast? Well, lucky for us, there's an amazing tool for that called PESTEL analysis. It is, quite literally, a structured way to scan the horizon for different kinds of weather, political changes, economic trends, new technologies, so you can actually prepare for whatever is heading your way.
PESTEL breaks down this big, complicated world into 6 key areas. You've got P for political, that's all about government actions and stability. E is for economic, things like interest rates, inflation, is the economy booming or busting. S is for social, this is about culture, what people care about. T is for technological, and this one is huge. What new tech could change everything overnight? E is for environmental, so climate change, sustainability. And finally, L for legal, the specific laws and rules you have to play by. It gives you a complete 360-degree view.
For this explainer, we're going to zero in on just 2 of these, the P and the L, political and legal. They're often tied together, and they basically create the fundamental rulebook that every single business has to follow. No exceptions.
So let's talk about how government and the law actually set these rules of the game. Because it's not just one government making all the decisions. It's actually a pretty complex, multi-layered system that can honestly feel like a maze if you don't know your way around. And this slide really lays out that maze. At the very top, you have these huge supranational bodies, like the World Trade Organization, setting rules for trade between countries. Then you step down to the national level, where your country's government sets things like federal taxes and employment laws. But then you go even more local, to the regional level, your state or city council, who might decide if you can even get a permit to open up shop. A single business has to keep an eye on all 3.
So, where do all these rules actually come from? Well, you've got your statute law, which is what we typically think of, laws passed by a parliament, but then there's case law, where a single judge's ruling can set a new precedent for absolutely everyone. On top of that, you have delegated legislation. Those are the super detailed, nitty-gritty regulations, and of course, those supranational laws. It all weaves together to form this incredibly complex legal web.
All right, to make all this theory really concrete, let's talk about one of the biggest legal challenges for any modern business: data. In today's world, how you handle people's information isn't just a tech problem, it's a legal minefield, and stepping in the wrong place can have massive, massive consequences.
So what even is personal data? Well, the legal definition is incredibly broad. It's not just the obvious stuff like a name and an email address. It is any piece of information that can be used to identify a living person. We're talking location data from a phone, an IP address from a computer, a customer ID number in a database. If it can point back to a person, it's personal data. Period. Now, it is absolutely vital to know the difference between data protection and data security. They sound the same, but they're not. Data security is about keeping the data itself safe. It's building digital walls to protect against hackers or making sure your servers don't catch fire. But data protection is about protecting the person. It's about their fundamental rights, making sure their information is used fairly and transparently. You could have the best security in the world and still be breaking data protection laws.
And these principles, especially under big laws like GDPR, are really the heart of it all. Think of them as the golden rules. You have to be lawful, fair, and transparent about what you're doing. You can only use data for the specific reason you collected it. That's purpose limitation. Data minimization is huge. Only collect what you absolutely need and nothing more.
Keep it accurate and don't hang on to it forever. And the big one, accountability. The burden of proof is on you, the business, to show you're following all the rules.
So what happens when these rules get broken? Let's look at a real-world example. Back in 2018, British Airways got hit by hackers. They got access to personal info and credit card details for nearly 500,000 people. And the craziest part? The attack went on for 2 entire months before anyone at the airline even noticed.
So, what was the consequence for that failure? A fine from the UK's Data Protection Authority. And the number was just staggering. £20 million.
Just let that sink in for a second. £20 million for one single security breach. This was not a slap on the wrist. This was regulators sending a clear, powerful message to every company out there. Get this stuff right, or it will cost you dearly.
But here's the kicker. As massive as that £20 million fine was, it could have been so much worse. Under GDPR rules, the maximum fine can be up to 4% of a company's global annual turnover. For a company the size of British Airways, that could have meant a fine well over £100 million. So that $20 million, they actually got off relatively easy. That's the kind of risk we're talking about here.
Okay, wow, that was a deep dive into a very specific legal headache. But let's pull the camera back now to the big picture. Why does doing all this analysis of the political and legal world actually matter? Well, it's the difference between just having a theory and having real-world success.
So here's the key takeaway. Understanding your business environment isn't just some nice-to-have academic exercise. It's a fundamental survival skill. It's how you spot those legal minefields like GDPR before you step on them. But it's also how you spot opportunities, maybe a new government grant or a change in regulations that opens up a whole new market.
And that's the real magic of a tool like PESTEL. It helps you take all the noise and chaos of the outside world, make sense of it, and then turn that insight into a clear strategy. It is genuinely how you prepare, how you adapt, and ultimately how you thrive no matter what's coming. So, we'll finish by flipping the question back to you. For your business, for your line of work, what weather is on your horizon? What are the political shifts, the legal changes, the big economic trends that you need to be watching right now? Because knowing the forecast, that's always the first step to navigating the journey ahead. Thanks so much for joining this explainer.